Dana. All right, so we are here at the privilege and at the blessing of Senator Bob Hall, who is a great hero of mine. I've known him since before he went into the Senate. I admire him. Everything he's a part of, I've seen and said, I agree. I don't remember many politicians in my life that I've ever been able to say that about. But Senator Paul, it is such a pleasure to be here. We're thankful. You're going to come up and share. And I want to tell you, all the people today that you're going to meet are like the founders, because I know many of them have sacrificed their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for you, just like you have for your families and those around you. So let's welcome Senator Hall.
Wow, Devin, thank you for that good introduction. Thank you all for being here. I just want to take a minute to recognize everybody in this room for what you're doing. But there's just a couple of people who have been key here. And there, first, I want you to recognize one of our new House members, or not really new, this is the second session now, Brian Harrison. This guy is one of our rock-solid conservative senators with a backbone. He was issued a backbone before he arrived here. So I'm looking forward to working with him. Glad he's here today. And we have a few others that are watching from their offices today. Other things are going on, and there'll be a lot of people in the Capitol watching this also. I also want to thank Dana Myers for what she's doing, for what she's been pushing here. Matt and Allie are doing a great job in leading this party down the right side of the road where we're supposed to be. R stands for more than Republican, and that's where we need to be. And this issue of maintaining our freedom starts with having elections that the results are the will of the people, and we know that it's the will of the people in this here. So, and Beth, where's Beth? Beth Bissell. Thank you, Beth, for what you did in putting this together. It's a little machine there that never stops running, never stops talking, and that was a joke. But we're glad to have you here. What I want to do is we have lots of people that work on this issue. Lots of people have found flaws in our system. And my biggest concern is, as I started digging into this initially from the issue of fraud, it didn't take me long to realize that that is not really our basic problem. Now, some of you won't agree with that, but our problem is we have a system that is so complicated and is so out of control that we have no idea what the mistakes are that are being made. And I'm going to talk about that briefly to put in context what I think needs to be done, because I started looking for fixes. I looked here and I looked there and I said, this needs to change, that needs to change, we need to not do this, we need to do this instead. And it finally realizes this is so messy that what we need is a clean sheet of paper. We need to back up, take a look at what are we trying to accomplish, and say, okay, how do we do that in the most efficient way and with the highest degree of confidence? Because this is one of those tasks that if people don't have a high degree of confidence that what is being done, they're not going to be interested in it. I mean, we have too many years of apathy in this country. Think about it. Our elections are affected as much by those who don't vote as they are by those who do vote. We get excited about 30% of people turning out to vote. It dawned on me one night when I was having dinner with a young man from Israel. And we talked about various things that got around to what he did. And he was a part of a group over there that was the equivalent of our Tea Party. And he's talking about, he says, I got to get back to Israel because I got 3 of the villages that I've got to get on for voting. He said, I said, what are you doing? He said, my job is to get the turnout in the villages. And I got to get back here because they let us down this last vote. And I said, really? How bad was it? And he said, they had about 70% turnout. And I said, oh, really? He says, no, we expect 90%. Folks, why should we not have 90%? Can you tell me anything else we do as a people that's more important than our elections? It is what our country is about. Our country was founded on the concept that it's the people's government. And if the people don't participate in the elections, where can they participate in the government? It is our responsibilities as citizens. And I say ours because I'm just occupying this position. I'm just an ordinary citizen like all of you. I'm a recovering political apathetic, is what I am. Came out of the Tea Party. But I recognize this is the most important thing we do. This is where your voice is heard, and government is run by those who show up. And the first place to show up is at the polls. It is our term limits. Our founding fathers built term limits into our Constitution. It's called elections. And you get to make that choice every 2 years for some, every 4 years for some, and every 6 years for others. And we're abdicating that responsibility and wanting a law to step in and do the job for us. Folks, our country won't work if we depend nothing totally on laws. Because our government is supposed to be, its objective is to protect individual inalienable rights. For those of you who don't understand inalienable, they didn't come from the government. They came from nature. They came from nature's God. And no government can take those away. But we're letting them take them away. We are. We accept the media for what they say. We don't stand up to it, and we don't do the effort necessary. You people are taking the effort. That is really great. I'm going to give you a plug for a book. If you really want to understand where we have gone and what has happened, a book by Dr. Robert Lowry out of Lubbock. And it's called Recovering American Liberty. I guarantee you it will be the best book you ever read on defining what that liberty is. He goes through, and about a 1,200-page book is used to describe our Declaration of Independence line by line and what it means. And I guarantee you it'll give you a different view of it. But that's more than I wanted to talk about here this morning, because we need to get down to where we're going with these elections, the changes we're making. What I want to do is lay out a framework for a new concept. Now, I know everybody has dug into it, and they've got issues here, issues there that they've picked out, and so on. A lot of these will go away when we just do the new structure of the process that I'm talking about, that is simplified, it has transparency, it has accountability, and it has a process where we can have confidence in the accuracy of what it is. Doing things differently than what we're doing today. So, can everybody see the screen up here? Okay, go ahead and let's put that up. And let me just run through a few slides with you that will talk about the basic concept of where we're going in the problem. Some of this I've kind of already covered. Okay, absolutely. Oh, okay. Absolutely, folks. We have got to move it so that we have a process that people can trust. And the trust is both fraud and error, because our system is so complicated and is so diverse. We've got 254 counties in Texas. You know how many election processes we have? 254. Every county does it its own way, and there are no two alike in there. The problems, we have no transparency. I call it the black box. The black box. There's no transparency. There's no accountability. There is very little anybody can do and actually be held wrong, either by error or on purpose, and be held accountable for it.
I think it's this.
And the accuracy is unknown. There are only three things that we actually know. Or the first is, the reason it's too complicated and it's too expensive. We spend a whole lot of money on some very complicated, expensive technology that is not needed. It serves no purpose in getting to the answer of what we want. The three things that we know, and these are the only three things you can say about our current election process. The candidates' names. We know who was on the ballot. We know that during election some number of people showed up. Some number of people voted. And the government announced who the winner was.
It says it's live.
That's all we can say about our current election system. There is nobody that is in office today or has been for a long time. They're actually going to a court of law and carry evidence that would prove that their election was the will of the people. It doesn't exist. The data does not exist, and that's what we have to fix here. We have to make Texas elections so that they're transparent. You can see everything that happened from the beginning to the end, totally open to people. We do it in a way in which we have confidence in the accuracy of it. There is no confidence in the accuracy of it because we don't know it. We have too much data that shows when it's all over with, and you go back and look at the number of votes for a particular candidate in a precinct is one number. The number reported by the county to the state is another number, and the county that the state has is another number. We have instance after instance of that. There is no ability to be able to know the accuracy of it. And those that don't follow the rules, don't get it right, do things wrong in the process that could affect the outcome, need to be held accountable. We need to put the laws in place that if you try to do this or that or the other that's not within the rules of how the election will be held, you are going to be held accountable for it. So, my summary of it to describe, it's a black box. It has a beginning and it has an end. We're not really sure what the beginning is and what the end is because we don't know when he did what. And ahead of time with some of the voting machines or mail-in ballots, and we find ballots coming in after it's over with, so it's some period of time that it's over. We have got some number of people that make the input, that show up to vote, and then when it's over with, by golly, we find out who won. The governor tells us. The governor says it has to be true, right? So that's where we are. So this is a simplified process. You say, well, I'm going from a black box to this. Well, let me walk you through this a step at a time and show you how really simplified it is. Let's start with the poll books. We need to get rid of the electronic poll books and go to paper poll books only. 30 days to have the polls open. And we'll be doing the voting in the precinct.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong.
Only. No county-wide voting. Precinct only. There can be polling centers in which multiple precincts, but when you walk into it, you go to your precinct, you get your, I talked about getting rid of it. And they will be sequentially numbered, and the judge will have to sign the back of the ballot. No stamps, no pre-signing, signed when the ballot is issued. Okay. They will be hand marked. Why in the world do we want to spend $3,500 on a computer to put a mark on a piece of paper that all of us learned how to do in the 3rd grade with a crayon? And we can do today with a ballpoint, 10-cent ballpoint pen. Computers have, throughout this you'll see that I'm replacing convenience with security. Some of these things will be even more convenient but will be more secure. We have to stop making changes, adjusting, accepting waivers, asking for waivers that sacrifice security for convenience. Okay. This is an issue to talk about whether we do hand counting at the precinct or a dumb optical reader. We're going to do what we can get done and get it through the legislature. Some things may not be optimum, but they're going to have to be practical and have confidence that we can make them work and with backup. And I think we can come up with a process with as dumb an optical reader as we can get, which reads a ballot, can only read that ballot one time. It has a memory disk that can only be written to one time. And it's in a machine that will be deployed the first day of the in-person voting. Let me back up just a second to put it in context. We're going to move from having 3 voting processes: early voting, mail-in ballots, and election day. We only need 2. Mail-in ballots and in-person voting. We make in-person voting a continuous event that starts on the 2nd Monday before Election Day and runs right through Election Day. And once a machine is deployed in a precinct for voting, whether it's on the 1st day, 2nd day, or 3rd day, or any time during early voting, it must have the zero tape run just before the polls open to verify no votes in the machine, and it stays there, and it has the tally or results tape run right after the polls close on election day in each of the precincts. And so those will be the same machines in every precinct throughout the state. So at that location, if you would, wait till I get through and I'll try to answer the questions, okay? We will have the hand-marked paper ballots and the tally tape. We will have randomly selected precincts to hand count some number of ballots, some number of candidates on them yet to be determined to verify that the machines are accurate. In the event there's an inaccuracy between the difference, we'll then go to a full hand and recount that one. But that will give us the anchor at the precinct when the polls close of what the votes were cast right there. And so that's the beginning. Then when that disc is taken to the county, to Central County, and they're put together at the county level, there will again be a production of the votes by precinct that will be verified, independent verification. This is something that does not happen today. Verify that yes, the county has now assembled all the precincts together, and these are the totals for the county. Is this consistent with what was at the precinct? Independent. Somebody who will have that check to say yes, each precinct number matches what left that precinct before it's sent to the state. So it really doesn't, again, this is where electronics get involved, but because of the independent verification, I think it makes that part not as vulnerable as what it was before. Okay, now the green is at the state level. Again, the state receives the inputs from the county and they put it together. But before they can publish their results, we do it again. The state goes back to the county and says, here's our totals that we've come up with based on what you have sent us. Do our totals that are made up of your precinct votes match what you had and what came out of the precinct? Of course, that's not done today anyplace. There's no independent verification. This is the link that will override the messing with the memory cards, the messing with the vote, and any concerns that people had about votes being sent off someplace or something done to them or anything like that, where we have a very close coupling between each step. And it's almost like having a continuous chain of command, so that before they produce it, that has once again been verified. Again, let me just go back and say that the keys here are eliminating that gap between early voting and election day. 20 states do it. 10 of them are Democrat, 10 of them are Republicans, and they work just fine. There's a lot of discussion about how much time we have for early voting. I say it really is, doing this makes that less of a concern. Then here, I'm okay with shortening it. I'm okay with leaving it long. It's whatever we can get through the system. Making it shorter will get opposition from those that will accuse us of voter suppression. And so we're always going to get that argument against us as voter suppression, but we have to make sure we don't do things that we don't need to do that they can use as voter suppression. But that's one of the keys. The hand-marked paper ballots, the random counting at the precinct level, the zero tapes being run, the machines being tested, the zero tapes at the precinct, the tally tape, signed by the judge, the deputy judge, and up to 2 poll workers. So we know we have the results. The results being posted at the precinct. Okay, it's over with. This is what we got off the tapes. This is what left here. This precinct, folks, open to the public. Big piece of paper posted up. Anybody can see it. These were the results at this precinct. The last thing is on the mail-in ballots. We look at, some people say get rid of them. We can't do that. No. We can't do that. And we do have folks that have a legitimate reason. We have to recognize that. Mail-in ballots for the military, we will not disenfranchise our military on election day. Disabled, absolutely disabled, deserve to be able to vote. They can't make it to the polls. And anyone who has a legitimate reason that will sign an affidavit that they're out of the district the entire early voting period, That's it. Just because you're 65 years old doesn't mean you get to have a mail-in ballot. If you're still going to Walmart, you can show up at the polls to vote. So, that's kind of that's the overview, that's the framework. I'm looking for your inputs, your suggestions, your ideas on things that will go into that framework to make it more secure. This is a system that will end up costing the counties, I feel, a lot less because we're getting rid of those machines. We're getting rid of the money they spend on technicians from the companies to come in during the election. And we will get a lot of opposition. Their lobby is getting cranked up really hard. And so my idea here is that people need to understand the problems we have. The last thing I want to talk about is the hard work that you guys have done in responding when I said, I've heard your story, I believe what you're telling me, but I can't do a thing with your story in my head. I need to see it in writing. You guys got together independently and put it on paper. I have a stack of affidavits that we got in. We have created a database. It's by county, and it lists all the anomalies that people saw. It's not just, there are things that the say question, is that fraud? But most of it is just gross incompetence, gross negligence of people just not following the rules. That's the school bell, folks. That's my dog report. It's going to be up on the website. We're still working on getting it tweaked, but I think we've got about a dozen counties in there, and we've got some really horrific things that people actually saw. Both from anybody that dumb to do that to, oh wow, how did they get away with it kind of thing. So for those naysayers that say we don't have a problem, that was the main reason we did that, to show here it is. This is not somebody's pipe dream. Our election confidence could not be any lower when you see how difficult, how complex, and how lackadaisical. Now we've got really good election administrators, many of them trying to do the job right, many trying to do the job right and not because it's so complicated don't understand. But we just need to make the job a whole lot easier. And that's where we're going. I don't have that up yet. We'll get that posted. So let me do that. Let me go ahead and that's the framework. And so you're going to get to hear from a lot of people from a lot of good stuff. Russ Ramsland and his folks have been on this. Mark Cook has been working this thing, and there's a lot of good. Kevin, I say enough to appreciate you and what you've done to help get it out and understanding what's going on. So we've got a lot of really good people. A whole lot of people aren't even here today. They're out there working. So let me go ahead and take a few questions here. And yes, Kevin. Pardon? Yes, we'll be addressing that also. They will no longer be able to wait. The waivers came about because the way the legislator wrote the legislation, we have 3 separate codes: mail-in ballots, election day, and early voting, and they're in conflict with each other, and people get them confused. And there are things in there that are conflict, and those waivers were, the idea there was because they transitioned from paper ballots to machines and paper and so on. The legislature didn't get it right, and so we said, okay, we didn't get something right. Secretary of State, you're in charge of it. You can straighten it out and fix it. We're going to fix that by putting it clearly in legislation what's to be done, and take that waiver stuff away. But ballot numbers start at 1, sequentially numbered. Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I had a real serious question that I posed to a person who was involved in election integrity. First suggestion was that we reduce the precincts to 1,000 people. Hand count every ballot. At the time of counting, you have 4 people counting ballots, then you swap around to make sure that they are accurate each count, and then the judge signs it. And if they're down to 1,000 people within 2 hours after the election polls closed, you've got the number.
That is certainly, I've heard that a number of times, the suggestion. One of the issues we have are poll workers. When you do that, you're going to talk about, we can't even get enough people to show up to work the polls we have now. And so we go to that kind of number, I don't know where the people are going to come from, but those kind of things are certainly a consideration that would fit within the frame of what we're doing as a second tier consideration to further improve security. So, yes, ma'am. All right.
I'm sorry, her or me?
No, you.
Okay. Breda, Galactic County, I'm early voting ballot board judge, and the advice that we get from the Secretary of State regarding questions on the mail-in ballots is inconsistent, to say the least. And we had a power of attorney that signed a ballot, and the Secretary of State said, okay, go ahead. So, and again, this is what we're doing. In my county alone, we did an open records request, and our county's cost for an election would have been cut 2/3. It cost us $39,000. It would have cost us only about $9,000 had we not had all of these HAVA required machines. So I hope that you will please talk about the HAVA requirements that the feds are doing. And I was also wondering if you would talk about the independent verification and how that is, if we could have some little bit more detail on that if you can. I'd appreciate it.
You're talking about the independent verification of the votes.
Yes, sir, right
Yeah.
here. Yeah, right down here.
I haven't gotten down to the second and third tier. This is a requirements document. This is.
I'm in love with this. I'm in love with
The
this.
implementation will come. I don't have the whole details of it laid out. This is the framework in which we're going to be developing the legislation to have it happen. Okay, and there's somebody, yes, lady. We're going to look at that option. We're not going to rule that out. It's going to be where we get to the competence. There's a lot of discussion going on, and I am wide open to it when somebody can come to me with a count procedure that has an acceptable accuracy. The studies I've seen where they've tried it many different ways, and it takes a lot of, this is not two people sitting down at the counter. It takes, most of the processes I've seen, it takes almost a dozen people involved in the process trying to keep the accuracy up. If somebody has a process that shows that we can do it with the number of people we could get with an acceptable accuracy, I'm fine with it. Yes, sir. Speak up. You got to be loud. I guarantee you that Senator Paul Bettencourt is on it. He is speaking out. I have gotten numerous press releases from him on this issue, and all I know is I talk to him almost every day on this issue. He's involved. He has got several bills filed that are focused on Harris County, and we do recognize that we've got at least two counties that are real problems. Harris County and Dallas County are two of our real problems. Right? No, I understand that. And there are numerous lawsuits that have been filed in Harris County that are going to bring out a lot of that stuff. But we're not going to take the whole state with our two big problem children. We got a couple others that are kind of running under the radar that are as bad but haven't got the publicity in there. Dana, you wanted to say something?
No, just to address that quickly, and I'm going to talk, but besides the lawsuits from the Hall mentioned, a lot of that information is going to be coming out in the lawsuits.
Well, I know that Alex
real quick, I'm gonna take two more questions, one right here and one over there, and I've got to go to the floor and let you guys get through the rest of this. Yes,
How is
ma'am?
Texas going to unravel its obligations to the HAVA requirements in the code? How are we going to get out of that?
We're working on that. I don't have an answer for you. The Fed problem is issue. I do know one thing, we are looking at separating Texas elections from federal elections. Last session, we made Texas a sanctuary state for Second Amendment. We no longer enforce federal gun laws here that are greater than a new federal law that's greater than Texas. We're going to be looking at doing the same thing in our elections here.
What about just cleaning them up? What are the electronic papers? It's full of people who want to
The election rolls are a whole separate issue. We're going to address that. Eric is an issue. We're supporting getting rid of Eric. There are ideas out there on how to clean up our voter rolls. One is to go to closed primaries. That's a possibility out there. We can do that. So there are ways. Folks, I'd love to stand here and talk with you and answer questions all day. Just let me leave you with this. Whatever you have in mind, get it to us in writing. A phone call is okay, but get it to us in writing because we're in session. It gets really hectic around here. Things move fast and there's lots of stuff and it's easy for it to get lost. So get it in writing. If you have incidents that you saw that you haven't reported on yet, get them to us. We'll get it into the database that's going to be, we'll let out a little bit later in there. And continue this work. Make sure your rep and your senator knows what you want to have done. You recognize and you're support of it. And I'll say we got another here, one of our stalwarts over in the House, Briscoe Kane and his wife. They're here. Briscoe has got elections high on his radar. He recognizes the problem we have. I look forward to working with him on this in the House. And there are others that couldn't be here. Brian Slayton is there. Who's here? Folks, you got the rock solid parts, the key parts of the House that are here today supporting this in there. So, but what we need to do is help these guys by making sure your rep and you find somebody for all the rest of them to know that we want elections that are transparent, there's accountability, and we know the accuracy. We want a clean sheet change to our election system. God bless you. God bless Texas.